meeting on the West Shore Lake Pontchartrain Hurricane Storm Damage Risk Reduction Feasibility Study. We held one in Lutcher a few weeks ago, and about 2 weeks ago we had one in Laplace. And these meetings are so important, and you're going to hear Colonel Hanson, our district commander, and Jeff Marisco, the project manager, tell you about the project as we go on through the evening. Just a few administrative things. Emergency exits, you see them all over the place if we need to. Restrooms, ladies' room is right outside these doors here. Men's room is back over that way. If you haven't signed in at the table outside there in the hallway, the foyer area, please do. We ask you to sign in so it gives us a record of attendance, and also if information comes up about the project in the method that you chose to have it sent to you, we'll send it to you. If you'd like to speak, we also have a list out there. You can go sign up there. If you don't but want to make a comment, we have a handy-dandy postage paid card that you can fill out and mail back to us. And we ask also that you hold all comments until after the presentation, because more than likely if you have a question or something, it will be answered as we go along. So what I'd like to do is just get right into it right now and introduce your parish president, Martinez.
Certainly I want to take this opportunity to thank all of you for coming out tonight. This is an opportunity to make comments to the Corps on alignment, hopefully, D, preferred route as far as Ascension Parish is concerned, because that would include our parish. And we feel like that we have a report here tonight that we'll present to the Colonel that will justify a cost-benefit ratio that will help make his decision. I know he has to make his decision sometime in about a month. So it's here tonight that we want to talk into, and hopefully we can convince him that Ascension Parish needs to be included in alignment D as a preferred route. Tonight is just for comments only. It won't be a question and answer type format, and they're going to give us a presentation, and hopefully we'll answer some of the questions. The other thing I want to mention, we have some representatives here from Pontchartrain Levee District, Pat Bell, Jerry Savoy, and Elsie Irvin, all three representatives, and they've expressed, Pontchartrain Levee District, that if alternative C is chosen, that Pontchartrain Levee District would actually build alternative D. So that's good, and we will also chip in on that if that needs to happen. But hopefully that does not happen. Hopefully with this meeting tonight and the comments made tonight, that the Colonel will hopefully choose alternative D. So without any further ado, I'd like to recognize Colonel Hanson. He's been with us a short period of time now. I went to the changing guard ceremony, and Colonel Fleming was there prior to that, was a good friend not only to Ascension Parish but to the region, and I'm sure Colonel Hanson is going to do the same here. I've spoken to him on a couple of occasions, on the phone, and seems to be a very reasonable man. So without any further ado, Colonel Hanson, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, not quite. Okay.
We're going to get there. Thank you, sir. All right, so next I'd like to ask Jerome Zarang, the Executive Director of the Coastal Protection Restoration Authority Board, come forward, please.
Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Jerome Zarang, and we represent the Coastal Protection Restoration Authority, which is responsible for flood protection and coastal restoration in the state. And on behalf of Garrett Graves and the Governor's Office, we wanted to, again, thank you all for coming, and also thank the Corps for expediting this project. I know, as my friend Steve will remind us, it's an expedited project that took 30 years in the making to get us to this point. But in reality, this 30-year project, Colonel Hanson at least got us to the point where we're getting to looking at different alignments, and just wanting you all to know from the state's perspective, and in the master plan, we recognize the importance and significance of protection in this area. And the alignment that we have within our plan is essentially alignment D, and we will continue to work with Parish President Martinez and the other parish presidents and the locals in the levee districts to ensure that we're provided protection. You all are provided protection. It's not just necessarily about individually, which is critical to your homes and your businesses, but also the industry and all the other aspects that these communities rely on. And it's important to ensure not only that they have the protection that they deserve and warrant, but also that we can ensure the benefits and maintain those benefits and the economic viability that exists by providing this protection. And looking at bigot waters and the effects that flood insurance and flood protection is going to have on homeowners in coastal communities, which is going to be, in some cases, the demise of some of these coastal communities will have significant impacts, and it's critical that we have this protection and incorporate that in how we're looking at addressing those issues and getting FEMA to recognize structures such as this and flood protection measures and risk reduction measures that are important to sustaining these communities. Unless we can incorporate that and build that into these communities, it's going to be difficult for these communities to survive. And so, just on behalf of the state, again, thanking the Corps to getting it to this point, but we will work with you all and the local entities to ensure that we're provided, afforded the greatest protection in these areas. Thank you.
Okay, next is Steve Wilson, President of the Pontchartrain Levee District.
Thank you, Renee, and Colonel, thank you for extending the courtesy of, I guess, expanding the public outreach to include Ascension Parish. And Tommy and his persistence, for sure. And on behalf of the Levee District, first let me tell you all that for those of you that don't know, Mr. Jerry Savoy, if you could stand up, if you don't mind, embarrass y'all. Okay. Mr. L.C. Irvin, you're here somewhere. Mr. L.C. and Mr. Pat Bell is here somewhere. Was. You have 3 representatives on PLD, and I want you to understand that since at least since 2004, when we finally got this reinitiated, those gentlemen and prior members, Mr. Sheets and Mr. DeLon, have been pretty persistent in including Ascension Parish in the West Shore alignment. We work very closely with Mr. Randy Cluot, Mr. Bill Rue, and again, Parish President Martinez, making sure that the Corps understood. As Jerome said earlier, in our minds, in the Corps, you're going to hear him talk about smart planning, 3 years. How's that? 3 years, 3 million, 3 inches. And I say that moving forward, that's going to be great stuff. But retroactively, we've been at this, as you all know, for a long time. 1971, folks. I think President Martinez was about 3 years old when this started, so 2, I'm sorry. So we want to make sure that you're included, and it is very serious. I'm trying to make light, but what we understand here, when the economics came out in this risk reduction study, the tentative plan, there's $10 million of construction difference between alignment C and alignment D. There's a lot of annualized costs that come into play, maintaining the levee, running the pump stations, operating the sluice gates, and then the fuel and electricity and the water to go with that. But from our point of view, for an additional 13 miles of protection somewhere in that general area, and $10 million, it's a no-brainer. And I'm here to commit on behalf of PLD, along with Jerome, with the state, that we are in the state master plan under alignment D. We're going to build alignment D. So I hate to pop everybody's bubble. We've got some process we have to go through here, but at the end of the day, our commitment is that if it takes us putting up the additional $10 million and the annualized local cost between myself, and I know we have a commitment from President Martinez as well as President Roussel next door in St. James, we are going to build alignment D. And that's going to get us all the way to the Marvin Grove pump station. That, in addition to the work we're doing with the parish on the Laurel Ridge levee system and some other improvements in Conway, Panama, and I won't pretend to know how all of that works together because I'm not from here, but I can tell you that when I deviate a little bit, Jerry or somebody's in my ear explaining it to me. So our commitment is that we're going to build alignment D, and now that the Colonel's got his final answer, we'll go ahead and let him speak. Thank you very much.
Okay, so we'll bring Colonel Rick Hansen, Commander of the New Orleans District, come forward and give you some remarks.
Well, good evening, and first I'd like to start by thanking Ascension Parish President Tommy Martinez for your leadership and for assisting in hosting this meeting tonight. As was mentioned before, about 2.5 weeks ago, this meeting was not scheduled, but President Martinez asked us for this meeting. We're thrilled that we were able to do this and have this tonight. And you probably want to know how we can have this meeting while the government is shut down. First, I will tell you, we did reduce staff. We brought a lot fewer people here than we brought to St. John Parish and St. James Parish. But Congress and the administration provided enough funding at the start of fiscal year 13, or about a year ago, for us to study this project and carry it through to a report for Congress by September 14. So we have the funding we need to complete this project study, and that funding did not expire on the 30th September at midnight. So that's why we're able to do this meeting tonight. There is a lot of things that we're not doing right now, but this is something that can continue and can stay on schedule. I do want to thank Steve Wilson, President of the Pontchartrain Levee District, for being a great partner throughout this process. He really works hard to keep all the local officials informed, and he's very involved in this project study. All the PLD is. Now, a little over a year ago, last September, after Hurricane Isaac, the President stated, go ahead through some slides, stated that we're going to make sure at the federal level we're getting on the case very quickly about figuring out what exactly happened here and what we can do to make sure it doesn't happen again and expedite some of the decisions that may need to be made. That's what the President said as he stood there, as you see in the picture. And we've had an unprecedented amount of federal, state, and local support on this study to date, and because of that, we've been able to make significant progress towards meeting that commitment that the President made a year ago. And here's where we are now when you see the bold print. We're in the agency and public review period. I need 3 things to make a decision on which plan to move forward with for detailed analysis in the final report. I need a draft selection of a tentatively selected plan, which I have, and as you know, that's currently Alternative C that's identified in the draft report. But what I also need is comments from the public and from state and federal resource agencies to make sure that we have all the information to make the right decision. And that's why this public comment period is so important. Now, every comment will be considered, and after that period ends, my staff, the staff of the district, will evaluate all those comments. And I want to stress that no decision has been made. It's critical that we know that this decision is based on the best science and engineering and information available, that we've captured all the benefits of a particular potential project, that we have accurately portrayed the costs of each alternative, and we have accurately analyzed the environmental impacts of the different alternatives. The public comment period began on August 23rd with the release of the draft report, and it ends in just a few days on October 8th. And as you can see, during this period we get comments not only from the public, from a variety of sources, public meetings such as this, through websites, hard copy provided by mail, and through letters from different agencies. And every comment we receive will be evaluated. So if you think you found an error in the report, we need to make sure it's corrected. If you find something you think we missed, we may need to supplement or modify our analysis. And in our previous meetings that we've had with parish government, with the Levee District, our focus was on the status of the project and telling them where we were on the process. But the focus of tonight's public meeting is to hear from you. So everybody that wants to come to the microphone will get an opportunity. We won't leave until we run out of people that want to come to the microphone and have something to say. And then moving forward from the public comment period, as President Martinez noted, next month in November, I will make a decision on the tentatively selected plan that we will move forward with for full feasibility analysis to then write into the final report that we'll provide to the headquarters of the Army Corps of Engineers, to Congress, and then the Assistant Secretary of the Army for Civil Works. But before we get to that point, there is another public comment period in May of next year. That lasts 30 days, a second public review, and then we go final with the report, brief it to our headquarters, and then it is eventually released from the headquarters to Congress. So we are on track to complete this report by September of 2014. We have the federal funds that we need to complete this report. We have the matching funds from the non-federal sponsor from Pontchartrain Levee District that you all provide through your levies. So we want to thank you for the support that we've had to this point during the preparation of the report. And with that, I'm going to turn the microphone over to Jeff Varisco. He is the Senior Project Manager for the study, and he's going to walk you quickly through each of the alternatives.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much. Thank you, Colonel Hanson. Quickly, we're just going to go ahead and give you an overview of the project to this date, kind of rehashing things that you probably already know as far as the selection, but I'll get into a little bit more detail. And then also give an overview of why we're here tonight, specifically from the NEPA, or the National Environmental Policy Act, which is actually a statute or and a legal reason why we're here as well. So go ahead and give you an overview of the plans. This was the final array of plans that we had. Oops, I'm sorry. We were down to 3 plans and the no action plan. And we did some studying on these 3 plans. And I'll go through each of them from east to west here. All 3 generally start in the same area. They start at the west guy return levee of the Bonnie Carey Spillway. The point on the map where they start, where it is a pipeline corridor. We're just north of that. That's why that actual spot is not just an arbitrary spot on the map where we started at. All 3 of the alignments from there, they're pretty much similar until they get to the I-10, I-55 interchange. And then I'll go ahead and I'll break down into each of the various ones. Alternative A is the blue line, and it's the one that hugs the developed, non-developed interface between the wetlands and the developed areas of Laplace and Reserve. That's that blue line that kind of comes back immediately in where the interstate elevates again just past Belterre Boulevard in St. John, right in Laplace. And it ties back into the Mississippi River near Hope Canal. And that, in a lot of regards, is the one that has the least impact to the environment. It has a very narrow footprint, and as you can see, it really is hugged up on the developed area. The next alignment, the purple, goes north underneath I-55 and follows, yet again, another pipeline corridor. It crosses back underneath the interstate where it's elevated, and then comes back and ties back to the same point that alignment A does. But as you can see, it's off a little bit from the developed area. As a result, it actually has less pump stations and less pipeline crossings. So these kind of things, if a lot of you were over by the boards, given a spirited conversation and questions earlier, some of the things that factor into the ultimate cost of the plans. And it's sort of how we have our pros and cons for each one of the alternatives. And then finally, the one that is very popular, Alternative D, which is the gold line, which follows I-10 for essentially the entire extent of the project area, turns north, and then ties back into the Marvinborough pump station. That one's about 28 miles long, and as Steve said, the construction cost is roughly right now estimated about $10 million more than C and D, which if we go ahead, I'm sorry, I meant to point out one other thing. A lot of people say, well, we've left out St. James. No, on A and C, we have on the highlighted area, the bright green area where the arrow points to is a non-structural area where we've actually identified through our surge modeling, water damaging St. James Parish, what structures would it be? And then in that area, we have a non-structural plan, and actually have a slide coming up here in a second. We'll go into a little bit more detail of what that is. But both alternatives A and C have that And then D is like a full structural measure where the only thing we would be doing is building the levee. All right, this is another one of the boards that was over there. If you had a chance to look at it, I'll just go through this. I don't want to go too quickly, but give you all just a quick overview and sort of how the Corps arrived at the decision it did, at least through the study team. You heard our commander just now say he has not yet made a decision, and that's true. Part of the reason why we're out here is to ask for more information. I know some of it's coming tonight from your local officials, and that's all good things. It's, you know, the Corps never turns away information, and specifically information we didn't have access to when we were doing the design work and looking at the various alternatives. So the difference between AC and D, everybody says yes to $10 million, and Steve alluded to it. There is a cost associated higher on D. If you think about it just in round terms, alternative C is a 18-mile levee. It has less pump stations, less control structures, a lot less things than alternative D does. Alternative D is a 28-mile long levee. It's got 6 pump stations. One of them is a very big pump station at Blind River. It's a very big area to cross. So when we move to the right of this table right here, you'll see that the annual cost for alternative C are lower. And as a result, when we marry that up with the benefits that are expected for each alternative, the very far right-hand column, the annual net benefits, that's how the study team, in line with the core policy, that's how we selected the alternative as the draft tentatively selected plan. It has the greatest annual net benefits, and so that's where we are right now. But that's not to say that there's not information that we can't gain during this public comment period that could sway the decision. And it comes down to, and this is the next slide, why alternative C? Well, at this point, it really is an economic decision, and there's a lot of things that go into that, but at the heart of it, right now, C is the alignment, or the alternative that reasonably maximizes the net benefits. Now, we'll go ahead and just talk a little bit more about the non-structural in St. James Parish. That's a plan to raise or acquire 1,500 structures in St. James Parish at this time, and either raise them, elevate them, flood-proof them, and if none of that's possible, the last case scenario, and worst case in my opinion, would be a buyout. It's also similarly cost-shared with a non-federal sponsor, who would be, you heard from Mr. Jerome Zarang, who represents CPRA. That's who we'd be cost-sharing, 65% federal, 35% non-federal. And that is a very large cost for C. We put almost $300 million into the plan for that, and whereas the actual alignment, the alternative itself, costs roughly about $450 million. So you see a large bulk of C's cost. Alternative C and A is the non-structural plan. And then just one other thing to keep in mind about non-structural, why in one way it could be considered a superior option, is that it's a one-time cost. Once you raise a house, we would raise it to whatever height we deem it would need to be at to be out of the floodplain, the 100-year floodplain, and that's it. A levee, once the levee is built, that is a permanent cost to the residents behind the levee. And so just one thing to keep in mind, why does the Corps look at non-structural, and we just felt it was important to go ahead and show you that. All right, so I said there's also a legal reason why we're here tonight. So anytime we come out and we want to do a detailed environmental impact statement or proposed action, we prepare this. The report that you can get online is actually an integrated report. It's the West Shore Feasibility Report and Environmental Impact Statement. And so we are out here to take comments as part of NEPA, and also, so it's definitely required for us to come out here and do this. Where can you get it? It is available at a couple of libraries, but I think the best way is go to a library and you can get to it online. It's on our main webpage. There's a West Shore link from there. You go to Google or Yahoo and type in West Shore report, and you'll go right to it almost. And that will get you the draft feasibility report. All right, there's a little bit more information about the National Environmental Policy Act, 1969. We come out before a decision is made. You heard the Colonel say that no decision's been made. That's true. We're out here to ask for information before we make a decision and before any actions are taken. Obviously, it's a draft environmental impact statement this time, integrated report. And so we're out getting comments before the final comes out, which, as the Colonel said, that'll be next year. And then just to let everybody know, we work with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service quite often, and as part of, they provide recommendations to us. You can actually find these in Appendix A of the report, if you were so inclined. It's required by 2B of the Fish and Wildlife Coordination Act, and essentially what they do is they give us comments and they tell us about what they think about the various alignments that we have, and even modifications to the alignment. So actually, if you go to it, you'll see that they showed us some other alignments that we did not look at into further detail, but they asked us to look at them, and we have to address it as part of the process. Obviously, one of the biggest concerns with Alternative D is the enclosing of wetlands. That was a major comment from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. How many acres of wetlands are behind a levee? There's the thought out there that this hurts levees when you it hurts the wetlands behind the levee when they're out there. So there are quite a few comments in there, but I certainly encourage everyone to look at it. It's definitely a very interesting read. And with that, I believe, Renee, turn it back over to you, sir. Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to start making our way into the public comment part of the meeting. And I just want to go over a couple things here on the slide. We're going to give you 3 minutes to speak and get your comments in. If you'd like to speak a second time, we ask that you wait till everyone at least has had one opportunity to make comment. You can't yield any of your unused time. All comments, as we've said all night, become part of the official record of this project. And all of them will be considered equally. And we ask that you remain quiet, please, while the comments are being provided so we can accurately record the information. We do have a court reporter here who is going to capture all the information as well. So when you come up to the microphone, the first thing we'll ask you to do is state your name for the record, please, and then get into your comments. And if you don't want to make a comment here tonight, these are some ways that you can get the information to us as well. And again, we also have the postage paid card. Lee, right over here to my left, your right, holding up the card. If you'd like to take one of these, I really encourage you to take one when you leave tonight. You may not have thought of something here, but after hearing the presentation and hearing other comments, you may feel moved to want to make a comment. So while you're at home, you go ahead and fill it out, drop it in the mail, we'll get it, and we'll make sure it becomes part of the record. Okay, so we're gonna get started here.
Testing.
All right, our first speaker will be Randy Kluot. And I guess I need to apologize up front. I've been taking a beating at the last couple of meetings on mangling names, but if you just bear with me, but I think I got this one right.
You did pretty good with that one. All right. My name is Randy Kluot. I'm a councilman in Ascension Parish, and I'm chairman of East Central Drainage. First of all, I want to thank the Colonel, all the staff, all you guys for coming out and agreeing to have a meeting with us. We do believe that on behalf of the Drainage District, that alignment D is very important. Important for everything for us to totally enclose and protect the people of the southeast portion of Ascension Parish. We think that it's feasible. We think that we can work it out. I want to take this opportunity to thank President Martinez and thank President Wilson for encouraging to back this effort, no matter what happens at the Corps level. And once again, I just want to let you know that Mr. Roop, who's our drainage director, will be up and we will enter our comments into the project. So please, Colonel and staff, take every opportunity. What we had is a short time to put together what we needed to put together to try to enter our comments into this study. We do have, possibly before the end of the comment deadline, some more economic development comments coming in from our Economic Development Group. We have a large portion of industry in Ascension Parish, and so does St. James, which we share the same swamp. So we will have that coming later. But once again, on behalf of the people in the southeastern portion of Ascension Parish, we would appreciate taking every opportunity that you can to take a look at alignment D and get that in hand. We will work with whatever agency is willing to bring that alignment to us. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Okay, next is Bill Root.
Okay, I'm Bill Rue, Director of Drainage for East Ascension Drainage District and also Ascension Parish. This is our official submittal to the Corps in support of alternate D levee route. I'm trying to get through it pretty quick, go through it briefly. Because the original legislation authorizing the study did not include Ascension Parish, no benefits to this area within Ascension Parish affected by the levee's alternate D route were included in benefits evaluation, although the costs were. As a result, this skewed analysis produced a BC ratio and annual net benefits that concluded best use of resources was for construction of levee as per alignment C. Ascension Parish and St. James Parish do not agree with this conclusion and request the U.S. Corps of Engineers to include Ascension Parish in the evaluation area. To this end, Ascension Parish submits the following data for consideration. The following information was produced utilizing Ascension Parish GIS Department, Moody's County Forecast Database, National Economic Development Procedures Manual for Flood Risk Management. We go to page 3. I included a chart that was within your report, and what I did is just added information for Ascension Parish. We notice table 1, you had land use in the study area of 230,000 acres. Ascension Parish study area, if you include that, you include another 43,702 acres. That's a 19% increase in total acreage. You go to number 4, page 4, historical projected parish population. You looked at, I'm looking at the total for, say, 2020 and 2080 in the St. Charles, St. James, and St. John the Baptist area. You're looking at 130,000 and 152,000 respectively. Ascension Parish is one of the fastest growing, if not the fastest growing parish in Ascension, and one of the fastest growing counties in the nation. Our projection through Moody's database, the projected Ascension Parish should go in 2020 to about 131,000, and by 2080, 258,000, which is an increase in 170% of what y'all evaluated already. The existing conditions and projected population within the study area, I used the same percentages y'all used, the real conservative, but we still got a net increase from what was analyzed already of 37% increase over what was projected. The number of households, same thing, goes anywhere between 97% to 196%, all the way up to 2008. A big increase, a big benefit if you figure this into the old ratio. Number 6, and this is really where it comes to our support of alignment D. If you look at the equivalent benefits, you're looking at 59,000 that was projected in your chart. But if you add a real modest 30% increase in benefits, and we feel it can be a lot more than that when you do a full analysis, but just increasing the net benefits by 30%, you're looking at 77 million in benefits. The cost don't change, but that's already figured in. BC ratio raises to 1.67. More important than that, you're looking at equivalent annual net benefits of 31 million compared to C of 23 million. So again, you're looking at roughly a modest increase of 30%. You're looking at a same BC ratio, but a huge 25-26% increase in your net annual net benefits. And again, you mentioned it, Jeff, a minute ago, that is the most significant number there. As per the National Economic Development Procedures Manual, The most efficient use of resources for any one project comes from the benefits exceed cost by the maximum amount. The maximum net benefits concept is therefore the best measure of investment because it contributes to the highest dollar value increased output. And again, it goes back to that 31 million compared to 26 million, 23 million. Based on the data presented here in Ascension Parish, the St. James Parish's request the inclusion of benefits to Ascension Parish gained by the construction of Alignment D, the West Shore project, the BC ratio, and more importantly, the huge increase in the equivalent annual net benefits of Alignment D make the decision to recommend Alignment D an obvious choice. Also included maps that we figured is included in the affected area, which is basically the Panama Conway and canals and lower part of the parish. And also have an inundation from different elevations and also the result of inundation from Hurricane Isaac. And we also have the resolution from the East Ascension Drainage Board and Parish Council recommending D. The last comment, real briefly, you mentioned about the environmental impacts, because we have a lot of levees within our parish, and we have a little bit of a conflict in opinion with this. We always believed, and we were able in the past to justify our levees by purporting the opinion that the levees don't hurt wetlands behind it. If your operational plan takes into consideration the normal operation, it allows the free flow of water back and flow, just like in normal you did have the levee there before. And we justified that in our other levee projects, and I think that can be justified with this too. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Okay, next is Clint Coymont.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing us to come to speak. I'm a Ascension Parish resident, local business owner. I had some concerns because I believe one of the main sticking points is going to be wetlands, and so I just wanted to touch base on some of the concerns of our wetlands here in Ascension Parish. We have the levee system. We see little or no impact to our wetlands, as Mr. Bill Rue mentioned. We allow for the natural water inflow and outflow during non-storm events. So that's very important that we have very little impact. I think the thing here in Ascension concerns us more is saltwater intrusion. I noticed that after our major storms, we continue to get saltwater intrusion past through the Pontchartrain into Maurepas. And if you take a boat ride through past Manchac, you'll notice there's very little thriving cypress trees and almost none sweet gum tupelo. That is caused from saltwater intrusion, and as we begin to constantly lose our coastal wetlands, actually these levees will be a benefit to our wetlands, protecting our wetlands from the saltwater intrusion. So there is a benefit on the back side of that, keeping saltwater and keeping our wetlands healthy. In addition to that, I was a little concerned about the cost of benefit analysis. I believe, as the previous speaker spoke, on some of the issues that I don't think were computed. I think a lot of the residents in Ascension and St. James are not computed, as well as the future communities are not computed into that cost analysis. I noticed you didn't have a change in your cost analysis from alternate C or D. And I thought that was interesting because obviously as you protect a greater amount of citizens, structures, economic businesses in that nature, there is a benefit to that, and that's not shown on your chart. And so that's something that stood out immediately to me. One of the more important things is the protection of the evacuation routes. I noticed that that wasn't computed. We're talking about our two major evacuation routes of US 61 and I-10 out of New Orleans and the surrounding parishes. As we noticed in Katrina, we had damage to the twin span. We don't want to eliminate the possibility of that happening to these evacuation routes. I think that that would be a detriment. And when we assess a cost of just over a little 1%, as we have on the charts there, of doing these levees, the first thing that comes to mind is loss of life. When we look at it as a cost of benefit or a cost to complete a project, we're talking about 1% of the overall, and that's huge. And I think that really needs to be noted in percentage perspective of what we're talking about when we're talking about governmental projects. 1%. And I think if we choose not to do alternate D, and we do have a loss of life, I don't think at this point we want to look back and look at a cost-to-benefit ratio number or a 1% cost of the overall project and say that could have saved the life or could have destroyed our evacuation route. So I would hope you take that under consideration, and I thank you again.
Thank you, sir. All right, next is Kent Schexnayder.
Thank you very much. I'm Ken Schexnayder. I'm a local parish councilman that is directly affected by this plan, and I appreciate y'all coming today and giving us an opportunity. One of the things is we need to really talk about is really having some common sense about, and I know the cost-benefit ratios of what you have to go by, but to really take a look at the cost of the closure of I-10, Highway 61, and the railroad. No one has mentioned the railroad. I stood on top of the railroad when they had a foot of water on it past south of Sorrento during that time when all the transportation was stopped. That is very, very important for the cost benefit around here. The industrial risk that indirectly is affected by storm surges of this sort. You may not directly affect a plant, in which we have many of them, but to not have the workers or the supplies being able to access that plant is very important, and the costs that are involved are tremendous. We have the type of existing, the common sense to tying into an existing levee system is very important. The people of Ascension Parish have spent almost $200 million in the past 30 years with a levee system, and to tie into that and complete that loop would be very important. I think we're all concerned about the environmental impact, but I don't think the environmental impact would be as great as what everyone's talking about, because that was done already in the 60s when the interstate was built. So the environmental impact of running a levee along that interstate would only be affected for a few hours or a few days with storm surge. The rest of the time would be just like it is now. It would not be changed. So I think that's something that really has to be looked at. Sooner or later, as we continue these levee improvements, we're going to have to look at pumping the water out of the system. This lake system that we have, we're going to have to get this water into the Mississippi River through the Comey diversion and through some kind of blind river or other diversion. And also, at some point in time, we will have to look at, because they were talking about, the blind river pumping station being so expensive, what we were trying to stop is the blind river at that time was going backwards. So pumping the water out, the idea of the rain event is not a big risk in this area as it is we're looking at stopping the storm surge. So I think that could be compromised into having something that would be a preventative measure instead of pumping out. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Okay, we're actually down to our last recorded speaker here for the evening, so if you would like to, Lee is over here. She can grab your name again. If you're not inclined to want to speak in public, you can grab one of these cards from Lee and take it home and fill it out and return it back to us. So, final speaker, with the exception of Miss Monica over there, Henry Graham.
Good evening. My name is Henry Graham. I'm Vice President of Environmental Affairs and Legal Counsel for the Louisiana Chemical Association. LCA is a trade association. We represent over 65 companies at over 100 plant locations throughout Louisiana. The majority of our facilities are located in the Baton Rouge to New Orleans corridor. We have currently at plans, not just talking about existing, but plans for over $16 billion in investment in new facilities in the areas that will not be improved by this alternative. Alternative D is critical for our industry because our most important resource is our people. Without our people, we cannot run our facilities. Without our facilities operating, you cannot get the gasoline you need, the plastics you need, the fuels, and the other critical ingredients that may serve our life. It is very important also for our facilities, not only for the operational part of our facilities, but the transportation infrastructure. We all saw last summer the problems that we ran into when one little section of I-10 was shut down because of a flooding. Well, all you're going to do is move that problem down the interstate. If you don't take alternative D, you still are not going to be protecting I-10. You will take away, with I-10 and 61 are the key evacuation routes for all of southeast Louisiana. And those certainly need to be factored into your equation. It appears from our review that you included the cost, but did not include many of the benefits as a result of this project. We recognize that you are limited by legislation, but at the same time, there's over half of the population would not be served by selecting alternative D, alternative C. Alternative D has more people that would be protected, twice as many people as with alternative C. It also has more facilities, more roads and infrastructure. And so we caution you in your analysis to make sure that while you're meeting the letter of the NEPA requirements of examining alternatives, it's very critical that you examine all of the costs and the benefits derived. We can't operate our facilities without transportation facilities, roads, railroads, shipping, loading and unloading facilities, docks, and many of those facilities would be impacted by a storm surge coming into this area. I think Mr. Zarang and also mentioned about the Coastal Restoration Protection Authority Master Plan. We worked with a work group on that plan, and it was very important for us, representing manufacturing interests, that as part of that plan they consider the impact of facilities and infrastructure. And I think if you look at that plan, you'll see there's over a dozen different factors, including protection of wildlife and protection of marshlands, protection of infrastructure. All of those were considered, and as a result of that, the recommendation was made that alternative D in that plan would provide sufficient protection and still provide environmental benefit. So we urge you to consider alternative D. We think it's a more responsible plan, and it will provide a greater protection for citizens of Louisiana. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Okay, we'll now close out the public comments and we'll hear from Monica Sallins, Executive Director, Pontchartrain Levee District.
Thank you. You know, I've been to the last couple of public meetings, and the Colonel, I'd really like to thank you very much for having this one. And it was important to the people here in Ascension Parish, and I think it's important to represent all parishes, especially where this particular study is involved. As Executive Director of the Pontchartrain Levee District, I reviewed the integrated draft feasibility report and environmental impact statement for West Shore Lake Pontchartrain Hurricane and Storm Damage Risk Reduction Study. I offer several comments, suggestions, and questions. Now, when I began to compile this letter, I had a few comments, a few questions, and as the day went on, and I have more, I have about 10 here. I'm not going to read all 10 because now I have 15. There have been a lot of wonderful comments, and no better to actually submit the comments than the people from this area. There are a couple that I would like to touch on, though. In the presentation, Mr. Briscoe, you referenced a slide comparing the plans, referencing the annual cost. If the O&M, that's operation and maintenance of this levee system, is 100% non-federal and the locals fully embrace the responsibility of these costs, then why not do a what-if scenario of the alternatives with the O&M costs excluded and see how the benefit of cost ratios compare with just construction costs? If that's not a federal cost, the local sponsor, being Pontchartrain Levee District, and the parish are knowledgeable and willing to absorb the O&M costs, then why include it in the selection of alternatives? Just because regulations say so? I understand that there are regulations, but that doesn't mean that they're correct or they're proper. I understand that it's not likely to get a change in the policy governing how this is computed anytime soon, but as local sponsor, I request that a what-if scenario be included and factored in the report for informative purposes to show how close alternatives C and D actually are. Page 27 talks about the LCA Convent Blind River Diversion Project has a potential to locally reduce stress and improve dissolved oxygen levels. So the report admits to a salinity problem. The levee would do wonders to help that. It also says that the Maurepas Swamp is expected to continue to decline and convert to open water without the project. Why are we being assessed mitigation costs against the project when the report clearly indicates these wetlands will be lost by 2070 due to subsidence and sea level rise? Wouldn't you think that the protection levee would help protect the 79 square miles of wetlands? Where's the proof that the wetlands behind the levee will be lost by 2070? Why doesn't the project get mitigation credits for saving 79 miles of wetlands? Another point, on page 2-13, I strongly disagree that no action there would be no direct impact on community and regional growth. If there is no protection provided, the impact from Biggert Waters Act is going to have a major adverse impact to community and regional growth. The regional growth would come to a screeching halt and then decline. We're not advocating development of wetland areas for community growth. In fact, we've offered to purchase private wetlands and put them in public trust. But they're vast agricultural land that could be developed. I also disagree completely about the indirect and cumulative damages to wetlands. I-10 already serves as a barrier to the wetlands as a levee. The culverts underneath do not pass much water. A use-phase analysis has indicated this. Unfortunately, the resource agencies have refused to accept the analysis. The Corps should be counting the benefits for protecting the marsh, not charging for mitigation for damaging it. This doesn't make any sense. On page 312, it states that alternative D poses potential uncertainties concerning impoundment of large areas of wetlands, especially if the river diversions are constructed. While it would prevent saltwater intrusion, it would risk impacting the hydrology by encompassing approximately 54,800 acres of swamp and would impact the environmental quality of the Maurepas Wildlife Management Area as well as Blind River, unquote. Where is the evidence that the levees would damage the wetlands? I cannot find the answer within this report. It doesn't exist. It's the opinion of environmental types, is my opinion. What about where the levees have helped the wetlands? Anyone can see for themselves if they drive down I-310 where the levees have helped along the Lake Pontchartrain vicinity, Hurricane Protection Levee, St. Charles Parish, Polder. The cypress trees are bare and deteriorated near Lake Pontchartrain, and the cypress trees are vibrant and healthy along Airline Highway behind the St. Charles Parish Hurricane Protection Levee. There's your evidence. You can see it on the way to Grand Isle when you cross the levee in Golden Meadow. You can see it on the, look at the aerial photos of South Lafourche after Hurricane Rita. You can see open water outside the protection levee and healthy, vibrant, forested wetlands inside the protection levee. Again, is this a bad thing? I've not seen it firsthand, but I'm told the same vibrant wetlands exist in St. Bernard Parish and down in Plaquemines. The Mississippi River corridor between New Orleans and Baton Rouge is a major industrial and petrochemical plant hub for the country. Products from these industries and plants are shipped via pipeline to all parts of the country. Alternative D provides the least impacts to these pipelines compared to alternatives A and C. Alternative D, for instance, 14 pipeline crossings versus 36 crossings versus 70 crossings, respectively. We have reviewed the pipeline relocation costs and feel these costs have not been fully evaluated. While the construction cost to relocate the pipelines was included per Engineering Appendix B, the pipeline outage costs and loss of material costs were not included. Those are significant dollar figures to leave out of this study because that's left up to us. If AT&T charges $6,000 per minute for lost time on a fiber optic line, what is the cost for a 6-inch, 12-inch, 18-inch, 24, and larger pipelines? How many gallons of product will be wasted during the tie-in procedure, and how much would that cost? I could go on, and I won't. I will submit all my comments by next Tuesday. I have several on my pages, keep going longer and longer. Please place these comments and these questions in your report, and as 50% owner of this study, I trust that the answers to these questions and all of the questions that have been submitted by all of the interested parties, from the people within the parishes, from all of the public meetings, the emails, U.S. mail, will be provided to Pontchartrain Levee District within 30 days after the close of the comment period. So I'm asking for the answers to all of these questions by November the 18th, 2013. Pontchartrain Levee District's partners, Ascension, St. James, St. John the Baptist Parish, and St. Charles parishes, are all in agreement, and we are all in favor of Alignment D. Colonel, you said in the beginning, Pontchartrain Levee District has been partners with USACE for quite some time, and we've worked very well as partners for many years. And as a partner, the Pontchartrain Levee District has confidence to be treated as such, of equal rank, consideration, and compromise when there are differences. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that'll conclude the public comments and conclude the meeting for this evening. Again, thank you so much for taking time out to come this evening to hear the presentation, hear the comments. So again, thank you for coming out tonight.